One of the greatest flowers for any xeriscape garden is the iris. They're also known as flags. The bearded iris have been around for many, many years and have been shared among friends and sold everywhere for many, many years. And they love our alkaline soils, so they're quite happy in a xeric garden in alkaline soils. They're not particularly fussy about soil. Deer do sometimes eat the blooms, typically won't eat the foliage, so it's something that you can grow in the hill country. And they come in almost every color, from yellows to oranges to reds to blues and purples. They really can give you quite a color show. Some of them are quite small and others are larger, and they do make a wonderful cut flower, and many of them have wonderful fragrances as well, so there's really a lot to recommend with iris. They do, however, need to be pruned and divided every couple of years, because if you let them grow into very large crowded clumps, they just won't bloom as well. So every couple of years you'll want to do that, and with most perennials you'll want to divide and do your work with them in the season opposite their bloom. So since they bloom in the spring, we do that in early fall, and that gives them a chance to adjust and grow and put on new roots and set blooms again for the following spring. Plus it's easier on the gardener, it's a little bit cooler, we hope. So you'll want to take a spading fork and go around the clump very gently and just lift them and loosen them. And then once you get those clumps out, set them aside, prepare the soil well. Now they don't need a very rich soil, so a little compost is great, a little of a balanced organic fertilizer, but they just don't need the same soil fertility as, say, daylilies to get going and do well. So you'll end up with rhizomes that look like this. And the rhizome that has bloomed the previous spring is not going to bloom again. And you'll know those because they're the ones that look kind of old and leathery. They may be kind of corky looking, and those you'll just cut away and discard. You can put those in the compost pile. Do look for iris rhizomes that are kind of soft, because that may indicate a bacterial disease. And if they have holes in them that look like borer holes, you'll definitely want to discard those, not in the compost, in the trash. But just cut off any of the new shoots of the rhizomes, and those will be the ones that you plant again. So just take a sharp pair of shears and cut those away, and again discard this old part. And if you have any roots that are torn or ragged or shriveled, you'll want to cut those away. Now you do want to keep these moist until you get a chance to get them in the soil, so do cover these up with a wet sheet, put them in the shade as you're preparing them. They can stay out of the soil for a while, but it's best not to let them dry out completely, because it's very difficult to get them rehydrated again. If your roots do dry out, just soak them in a water solution, just to barely cover the rhizome with water, and let those roots plump up again before you're going to water them. If you need to store them, or if you're shipping them to someone, you can wrap them in wet excelsior or moss and keep them damp that way. So when you cut these ends of the rhizomes, one of the things that's great to do is just take a little dusting sulfur and dab that cut end in the dusting sulfur, and that can help cut down on fungal problems and bacterial problems in the rhizomes and keep them nice and healthy. So you'll cut away the foliage. Some of this foliage looks a little brown and discolored, so take some very sharp scissors, and I like to cut them in a chevron so that the upper leaves are more pointed. And then you want to plant them not terribly deeply. I think that's one of the main reasons people have problems with their irises. They try to plant them too deeply. You really want the surface of the rhizome to be right at the surface of the soil. So you'll want to make a little hill and press those roots into the side, and you'll pull the soil up and really compact it around the soil. And I like to line the rhizomes up in the same direction, but plant them in little triangles of the same color. And you can see here that rhizome is really showing at the surface of the soil. And I don't mulch the iris. They just don't need a lot of mulch. But if you plant them properly, divide them occasionally, share them with your friends, you will have displays of color that are just really show-stopping. So do give all of the beautiful colors of iris a try, and you will have a dramatic spring accent for your yard.